Knowledge is power, right? And you're modeling a behavior to others that's showing up to increase your knowledge level is actually a leadership trait. Leaders are constantly in education. Leaders are constantly expanding their mind. How else does this help you show up as a leader? The best leaders in the world know how to show up and show others that they just don't know everything and that they've made mistakes and that they're still a work in progress. In chapter 2, it's called the Domino Effect. For those of you that don't know, we're in the one thing. How many of you make commitments that you don't keep? Am I the only one? Okay. How many of you set goals that, within a few days or weeks, you've balled up the piece of paper and you've thrown it in the trash? Right? Maybe it's not just business goals. Maybe it's fitness goals. Maybe it's, goals to be more present with your family. Maybe it's travel goals. I don't know, income goals, right? The reason is because we all are not good at this. And neither was Gary Keller. I would say he's a lot better with it, but even he probably has to go back and say, okay, things are not working. What do you think happened to him when one of his key guys left and decided to open up his own business? And we know what that business was, right? It's a business that's very similar to Keller Williams, except doesn't have brick and mortar, right? It's called EXP. And Gary probably had to think to himself, okay, and I guarantee you, because I've listened to him enough to know that the first question he asked himself is why did that person feel like he could not be that successful within my world? That's probably the number one thing he asked himself. So Gary probably looked at the person in the mirror. He wasn't blaming the other guy. And then he probably had to go back to this and say, okay, what's the one thing that I can do this year that everything else will be easier or necessary? What's the one thing that I can do today? What's the one thing that I can do this week? And for those of you that have been with Keller Williams for any length of time, the advent of EXP caused a revolutionary change within Keller Williams. If you've been with Keller Williams longer than 10 years, can you say that we've changed? Say yes. And most of it in the last 5 years, right? And here's why. Because we always have to go back and re-examine where we are and where we are in our progression, in our success progression. So Gary talks about this here. He had reached the pinnacle in his company, but it wasn't growing. And he had to do what? His one thing was to go hire 14 people. So in this chapter number 2, the domino effect, what Gary talks about here is how one domino, when you push it over, it creates such force and such momentum that one domino hitting another domino, hitting another domino, hitting another domino creates such a progression that you actually could bridge the distance to the moon. And here's what he says. Imagine, he says right here, he says in 2001, there was a study done, and it said, if you create 8 dominoes out of plywood, so we all know what plywood is, right? If we create 8 dominoes out of plywood, each of which is 50% larger than the one before, the resulting domino fall will end with a slam because of the amount of geometric progression, the amount of energy that is created. But that first domino to the last domino, that first domino probably could not hit that and turn it over and knock it down with as much energy as it does with the 8 dominoes that progressively get 2 inches larger, 2 inches larger. Now, why am I saying that? Yesterday, I was on a call and I had one of the agents say, hey, Becky, you know what? Over the next 2 weeks, I had kind of planned to, be with my family and stuff like that for Christmas. And yes, we want to be with our families and stuff like that for Christmas. But then I asked this question, how many days, so you guys look at me, how many days are between today, how many work days, Monday through Friday, are between today and January 1st? Somebody tell me. How many work days? We're on Thursday today.
12.
Is it 12? Okay, 12. 12 is a good number. All right. So I asked her, I said, could you, even with your family in town, could you at 9 o'clock get on the phone and have 3 real estate conversations for the next 12 days? Could you do that? Could you talk to 1 new person, 2 new people, and 1 maybe in your database? Could you have 3 conversations? Let me ask you, how long would it take you to have 3 real estate related conversations with 2 new leads? Let's say if you're circle prospecting or whatever it is, or you're calling in Boomtown, or you're calling in your lead database. How much time would it take you to have 3 conversations? Somebody tell me. You know, you do lead gen.
An hour?
An hour? Okay. An hour, 30 minutes, whatever.
30 minutes,
right?
I would say.
30 minutes, 30 minutes. Okay. So if today you have 3 conversations and you add them to your database and you put all your notes in and you put them on a drip, and tomorrow you have 3 conversations, Monday you have 3 conversations, and Tuesday you have 3 conversations. What is 12 times 3? Tell me. I know what it is, but I want to hear you guys.
36.
36. When is the last time, other than those of you that were just in bold, when is the last time you have had 36 real estate conversations in 12 days?
Never.
Okay, never. I hear never. That's the domino effect. Do less with more effect than a lot with side effects. We make this business too hard. I know you guys have heard me say that over and over, and it's the truth. We make it too hard. The hardest thing is just picking up the phone, because here's what we do. We try to do everything to escape picking up the phone. How many are with me? Let's be honest. But if you just had 3 real estate related conversations every day, 2 with new people, 1 follow-up or database, and you reminded them you're in real estate, and you asked for a referral or who they might know, how many opportunities would you get to fill your pipeline with future real estate deals? But what we do is and that's the domino effect at work. But what we do is we say, oh, well, I'm not going to work today and tomorrow and Wednesday, but Thursday, I'm going to call for 4 hours. I'm going to call for 4 hours. Am I the only one that's ever done that? Am I the only one? Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I just want y'all to know that everything you're thinking about doing or have done, I've been there. And here's the thing. Thursday comes and 4 hours turns into what? 1 hour?
1 hour.
None. Something happens. Something comes up. You guys hearing me? So we put all of these elaborate plans together, and we put all this pressure on ourselves to be here and do this and have this and when really, if we would just pick one thing and do it every single day, we would get exponential results that would far outpace anyone who runs around like a chicken with their head chopped off for 8 hours in this business. I've never been impressed by the agent that's running around with all this business going on, and I'm just so busy, blah, 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 because I'm impressed by the one who has a super big business that they sell X number of homes every single month, and they do it by sticking to a schedule. That's the impressive one, because that person works way less and does more business than the one that's running around. So I want you to ask yourself, what do you need to decide today? that you're going to do for more effect rather than doing all this stuff for side effects. Here's what Gary says in this book, and it was just such a big reminder to me. He says, and I'm on page 16 for those of you that have the book. Toppling dominoes is pretty straightforward. You line them up and tip the first one. Okay, the first one, 3 conversations today, 3 conversations tomorrow, 3 conversations Monday. In the real world, though, it's a bit more complicated. The challenge is that life doesn't line up everything for us and say, here's where you should start. How many of you feel that? Life's not saying, here's where you should start. That's why you get a coach, by the way. Highly successful people know this. So every day they line up their priorities anew. Every day they line up their priorities anew, find the lead domino and whack away at it until it falls. You don't have to show me your hands, but how many of you have already opened up your calendar this morning to see what your day looks like and to rearrange and prioritize so that you get the most important thing done this morning? Awesome. It's so important, right? And if you haven't, when you get off this call, do that. Why does this approach work? What do you think? Why does this approach work? If you line up your priorities, you set your schedule for the week, but then every day you line up your priorities anew. Why does this approach work? What is the one thing that I can do today so that everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? Talk to 3 people. 2 new, 1 in your database. What can I do tomorrow? Talk to 3 people. And then put them in your database and then update your notes and then put them on a drip so that you follow up with them again. It's that simple. It's just not easy because our minds don't think that way. We get really bored with stuff. Here's what Gary says. Why does this approach work? Because extraordinary success is sequential, not simultaneous. What starts out linear becomes geometric. You do the right thing and then you do the next right thing. I just went through business planning with many of you and we set 3 priorities, right? And under those 3 priorities, we have 5 strategies. And it was really confusing because everyone was like, okay, well, which one of these do I focus on? Which one of those allows you to talk to new clients or existing clients? It allows you to have real estate conversations every day. That's the one you focus on. And guess why I say you don't move to the next priority until you perfect the first one? Because Gary says you do the right thing, then you do the next right thing. So some of the agents that I was working with have a CRM and they already spend time in that CRM and they get deals out of it. You keep doing it. You've built a habit around that. And now we're going to add the next priority. And you're going to do that until you build a habit around it. And it gives you everything you want in your business. And you may not have to do priority number 2 or 3 because that one priority was big enough to get you to your goal. So find the lead domino and whack away at it until it falls. And here's the thing I want to end this call with. When you see someone who has a lot of knowledge, they learned it over time. When you see someone who has a lot of skills, they developed it over time. When you see someone who has done a lot, they accomplished it over time. When you see someone, listen to this, who has a lot of money, they earned it over time. Unless they were born into it, of course, and then they're just darn lucky and I'm jealous. The key is over time. Success is built sequentially. It's one thing at a time. So here's what I'm going to end with. Well, not going to end with this. I want to hear some thoughts from you. But before we do that, if you don't have your business plan together, it is time. It is time to understand clearly what your one thing is going to be next year that you're going to focus on that is going to give you exponential results. Not 10 things you're going to focus on, one thing. And you are going to build systems around it, and it's going to be a big enough one thing that it will get you to your goal. The goal is easy. If you want to close 24 homes a year, how many listings do you need to get a month? How many listings do you need to get a month if you want to close 24 homes a year? No, Matt, one listing, one. Because one listing gives you how many buyers? Two, at least one, right? But two, and if one of those goes under contract, that's 24 deals a year. What is your average commission? Multiply it times 24. I make my point, right? I make my point. This business is simple. It's not easy because you have to stay focused like this. You got to be like this. That's everything. All right, guys. So here's my hope for you today. My prayer for you today is that you really get off this call, look at me, and you do not get on Facebook. And you do not get on email. And you call and talk to 3 people. Call 2 expireds. Who cares if they hang up on you? Talk to 2 expireds. Call to do some circle prospecting and talk to 2 people around a listing. Call your database, somebody that you haven't talked to in 2 years. Lots happened in 2 years. Prospect, prospect, prospect. And just call and talk to 3 people. Just call and talk to 3 people. Tell them happy holidays. All right, we're not together tomorrow. We will be back here on Monday. We will not do Limitless the last week of the month. We will not do it from Christmas Eve, and we won't come back until January 2nd. So we'll be here all next week, but then the week after that, we'll be off because I'm going to see my grandbaby, and I am not thinking about anybody except that 18-month or 20. Well, actually, gosh, she's getting old. She's like 18, 19 months now. She's just the only one that I'm going to be cuddling with for an entire week. So I love y'all, but I love her more. Is that okay? All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye.